Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. If you know me, you know that I am not a conspiracy theorist, that I avoid conspiracy theories like the plague. And so I don't want to come across with what I'm about to say as if I'm engaging in some kind of weird conspiracies. But I do have the privilege of spending a lot of time outside the United States. And because I spend so much time outside the United States, I get a chance to see American culture from the outside in. And that means that I only come back to the United States every so often, and so I'm not immersed in American culture like most Americans are. And that, therefore, I can see the changes because I'm coming back so infrequently. I can see the changes better than somebody who is living here full time. And I want to give you a warning. I want to say that I'm disturbed by what I see in America. It appears to me that America is devolving and collapsing in slow motion before our eyes. And I just want to go through a few of the things that have just made themselves very apparent to me over the past several weeks in the United States. When you look at the state of so many things in America today, they are not in the kind of condition that you would expect from a global superpower. So you just take our military. There are ships in our Navy that are just rusting away. When you see a ship that's got rust streaks all over it, you don't think the most powerful Navy in the world. You think some third-rate, third-world country. But yet, this is what we're seeing. When you drive by the docks in Norfolk, ships with rust streaks down them. And this is very concerning. Instead of training for war, instead of spending our government resources on things that will make our military deadlier and more capable, we're spending $81 million on renaming military bases that nobody could tell you who they're named after anyway, in order to make them supposedly less racist. This is very concerning. You look at the state of our schools, and there's no way that you can say that American schools are at the top of the heap in the world, and they haven't been for a long time. Public schools in America seem to be more concerned with teaching our kids about gender theory and stupid climate change stuff and things like that, rather than training them in the STEM disciplines is in a way that will make them competitive on a global stage. We have literally millions of people coming across our southern border illegally into the United States, and all of those people are not immediately going to contribute to the United States financially. As a matter of fact, according to the Federation for American Immigration Reform, every family of migrants that comes across into the United States every year costs American taxpayers about $60,000 in education and health care and welfare benefits and other services. And we are seeing an absolute explosion. The numbers of people that are coming through the Darien Gap now are, at one point, years ago, when I was covering this, a record year would have been 40,000 people in a year. Now we're seeing more than that in a month. That's a record beyond all records. That's unbelievable. And you're going to be talking about up to 400,000 people in 1 month coming across the U.S. southern border. That's two entire cities the size of Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's unthinkable. It's unbelievable. There's just literally, it will crush our country. It is a free-for-all at the U.S. southern border. Is there any possible way that could reduce the demand? No, that's going to increase the demand even more. And they're saying we're going to increase the penalties and make it harder if people come across illegally. We're going to deport more people if they come across illegally. But there's no possible way to deport 400,000 people. There just isn't. I think we deported like 13,000 max in 1 month. There's just no way. But this is insanity, insanity. The other thing that I see in America is the absolute unhealthiness of Americans. every time I come back to the United States, the first thing that I notice is everybody is so fat. They're just so ridiculously fat. They're just so overweight and just unhealthy. They go around with this just white, papery skin. They look like cadavers. When you spend most of your time outside the United States, it's shocking to come back to the United States and see how unhealthy Americans are. And that's because the American diet is obesogenic. I myself, in better shape and healthier when I'm outside the US, when I come into the United States. Part of it is because I'm traveling around like a crazy man trying to get everything done. But the bottom line is I get unhealthier. I gain weight. In 1 month in the United States, I gain weight. I got to go somewhere else, out of the US just to get back in shape. The culture of America is so dysfunctional and so unhealthy. And that leads to another thing, the crime rate in America. And this is not violent crime, murders and rapes so much, although those are going up. But it's the crimes of anger. It's the road rage. It's the mass shootings. And the majority of mass shootings are not getting covered because they are black people killing other black people. And now this is where I don't want to be seen as a racist because I've got a son who's mixed race. But the bottom line is that black people are killing each other at a rate that is absolutely astounding. And that bleeds over into the kind of violence that we see in protests that are happening around the country. When a black kid gets shot by a cop, find me a black kid that got shot by a cop that wasn't actually breaking the law at the moment he got shot, that was just doing nothing. If you believe that these black kids are being hunted by cops, then you're part of the problem, because that's not the case. The vast majority of shootings in America are gang-related shootings, and they're black people killing other black people. And police are doing their best to try to make our communities safer. But when somebody runs from the police or when they shoot at the police, you should expect that the police will shoot back. And unfortunately, if that person that's shooting back at the police happens to be a black kid, he's going to get shot. That's the way it goes. And then you have these major protests where people think that they can go and stand in the middle of the street. This is not a legitimate form of protest. This is more like kidnapping, because what you're doing is you're kidnapping the whole line of cars that has nothing to do with your cause, that's probably would have been sympathetic to your cause up until the point where you ruined their day by blocking traffic for hours and hours. Okay, and so the dysfunction of people thinking that the way that they need to protest is to go burn down their own neighborhood, loot a Target or a CVS, or shut down traffic on a major thoroughfare. These are not legitimate forms of protest. And to think that is an expression of liberty is absolutely profane. Let me tell you something, folks. I've been in Ukraine, in the war zone in Ukraine, and I would gladly take my family to live in Kyiv before I would take my family to live in Baltimore or Detroit or Chicago or Los Angeles or San Francisco or Dallas or virtually any major city in the United States. It is safer, objectively safer, even with the threat of falling missiles in Kyiv, than it is in any major American city. And I will stand by that with my hand on a Bible. I would rather be in those other cities. Kabul is probably safer at this point than Detroit. So that's a scary thing when you start to see how this country is just devolving before our eyes. And the things that we're fighting about have nothing to do with the survival of our country. They have to do with transgenderism? What? Now, there's one more thing, and this is where it gets really into the realm, I would say, of possible conspiracy theory. But there's something that's very concerning, and you've probably noticed it too. Does it seem like there are a whole lot of fires and train derailments and things like that happening around this country that are costly? There was a fire in, I think, Oklahoma or Texas, killed like 118,000 cattle or something like that. It was like some unbelievable amount of cows. When that happens once or twice or 5 times in a year, okay, That's probably just coincidence. When it's happening every week, 50 times a year, that's really bad. And that's happening like on a regular basis. If you Google it, if you start to look online, things like that are happening a lot around the United States. What is going on in the US? Very concerning. So I don't really have answers to that. But the bottom line is America is a very unhealthy, dangerous place that is literally disintegrating before our eyes, and we better do something about it before it's too late. I'm Chuck Holton. That's not a real exciting podcast, but I just wanted to share my thoughts with you. Thanks for listening.